They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Doom, a title and a series of games that almost needs no introduction, aside from simply stating that single, simple word. In gaming years, Doom has been with us nearly forever. The classic, original titles were exceptionally innovative in their time, and they still stand the test of time to this day. Doom defined the first-person shooter genre. Without Doom, it's difficult to say whether or not first-person shooters would have ever reached their enormous popularity. Then, there are the modern Doom titles that continue to innovate, as all Doom games should. Whether you, as the Doom guy or Doom Slayer, are zipping all over the place, running, jumping, dashing, or simply standing and fighting, Doom is eternal. And, in this video, I will be going over all of the mainline entries in the Doom franchise, a franchise which I believe has never seen a bad game. I also want to mention that I won't be going over games like Doom RPG, Doom Resurrection, Mighty Doom, or Doom VFR. Only mainline, straight-up first-person shooter titles here. I also like to focus on gameplay, so I won't be talking much about the story. So, with that, let's rip and tear through some of the most legendary experiences in gaming history. In December of 1993, id Software unleashed Doom upon the world, and it became a global phenomenon. The story was simple. The United Aerospace Corporation, experimenting with teleportation technology, has opened a portal to hell, and their research facilities on Phobos, a moon of Mars, have been overrun by the demonic hordes. You play as a lone survivor, a space marine that became known as Doom Guy. As I already said, Doom defined first-person shooters. In fact, for much of the mid to late 90s, FPS games were simply called Doom clones, which is funny because in the modern era, classic Doom is a major influence on the boomer shooter subgenre, which, alongside the influence of the modern Doom games, has brought back the Doom clone terminology yet again. For me, Doom is not something that I grew up with as a kid. In fact, it came out before I was even born. However, it was the trailer for Doom 2016 that I watched while in college that gave me the thought to look back at OG Doom. And this is a decision that I will never regret. As soon as I saw the gameplay of classic Doom on YouTube, I knew that I just had to play it. It looked incredible. It blew me away how good it looked for a game from 1993. Growing up with shooters like Halo and Call of Duty, I was instantly hooked on Doom's style of first-person shooter gameplay. You can run at 1,000,000 miles per hour at all times, with no stamina meter of any kind. There is no reloading, you can carry the entire arsenal at once, and most enemy attacks are projectile based. Even playing Doom for the first time in 2015, this game blew my mind. Plus, it is definitely helped by an incredible MIDI soundtrack from id composer Bobby Prince. Yeah, I know that a lot of the tracks are rip-offs of known metal songs from popular bands, but it is still very awesome. After playing Doom, I knew that old school first-person shooters were all that I wanted to play, and from there I was playing Quake, Duke Nukem 3D, Shadow Warrior, Blood, Unreal, Half-Life, etc. And like I said, I didn't grow up playing this game, so my love for it isn't even rooted in nostalgia. I love Doom because Doom is ridiculously good. But personal experiences with Doom aside, let's get into the aspects of its gameplay, and I'll start with the level design. Unlike every single shooter to come out of the modern military shooter trend brought on by games like Call of Duty, Doom's levels are much more open-ended. Branching pathways and key hunting make up the level design in Doom, with plenty of backtracking. If you're at all familiar with what have now become known as boomer shooters, searching for certain colored keys to unlock certain colored doors is all part of the classic old school shooter experience, and Doom built on this tradition that was started in Wolfenstein 3D. Doom's levels are not a theme park ride where you simply go from point A to point B, and this is a superior approach to level design in my opinion. On top of this, levels are littered with various ammo, health, and armor pickups that you'll need to be on the lookout for. Yeah, there is no regenerating health in Doom, as your health bar is fixed, and you need to find the resources yourself in order to heal up. It's also worth noting that the main game is split into 3 episodes, with a 4th episode being released as part of the Ultimate Doom. In the first, UAC tech bases with all manner of computers and monitors, as well as waste processing facilities, make up the environments. In the second, Doom Guy travels to the moon Deimos, which is rapidly changing from a futuristic tech base into a strange, hell-corrupted mass of warring architectures, as Hell's influence deeply plants its roots. Then, there is the 3rd and final episode that takes place in Hell itself, a realm of stone, fire, and death that has some of the more abstract level design and environments. As for the monsters, there are plenty and they are all iconic. You have the hit-scan zombie men and shotgunners, former UAC soldiers that fell to demonic possession, and a few other enemies resort to hurling slow-moving projectiles in your direction. These enemies include the Imps, the big floating meatballs known as cacodemons, and the towering Baron of Hell with its goat-like legs. Other enemies rush the player to deal melee damage, and these would include the Lost Soul, Pinky Demon, and Spectre, a partially invisible form of the Pinky Demon. Aside from this, the bosses of Doom are iconic as well, and these would be the massive Cyber Demon with its extremely deadly rocket launcher arm, and the Spider Mastermind with its chain gun that can tear you to shreds. Fortunately, we have ample firepower to deal with this demonic threat. The pistol is used at the start of the game for maybe 10 seconds at most, but what follows is the workhorse weapon of the game, the shotgun. Surprisingly accurate at a greater distance than you would think, the shotgun is simple, reliable, and satisfying. Then there is the rapid fire option that is the chain gun, which absolutely shreds through enemies, and its counterpart is the plasma rifle. Functionally similar to the hit-scan chain gun, however, this futuristic piece of weaponry fires projectiles that do way more damage. The rocket launcher is pretty self-explanatory. Shoot rocket, and rocket blows up, blowing up any enemies that are too close to the site of impact, unless you are dealing with the tankier monsters, like the Cacodemon or Baron of Hell, of course. Melee weapons also make an appearance. The most iconic would be the Evil Dead-inspired chainsaw, great for cutting through Pinky Demons one at a time in my experience, a fantastic way to save ammunition. Then there are your fists. They're not very damaging on their own, but if you find a Berserk power-up, you can beat demons into a bloody pulp with your bare hands. Oh yeah, there are power-ups in this game, I should mention. And aside from the Berserk power-up, there are the Soul Spheres and Mega Spheres that can bring your health all the way up to 200%, the Mega Armor, which does the same for armor, a partial invisibility power-up, a radiation suit for moving through toxic waste, and an invulnerability power-up that gives you temporary God mode. However, the greatest and most powerful tool that you can put to use is the legendary BFG 9000, the big fucking gun. A handheld plasma-fueled weapon of mass destruction that can clear an entire room of demonic monsters. So yeah, Doom is awesome. An absolute classic with a timeless art style and a game that I am regularly returning to. Fortunately, it got even better the following year with the release of Doom 2, the game that defines what we truly know as Doom. Doom 2, Hell on Earth, takes place, as you would expect, during an apocalyptic hell invasion of Earth. On the surface, Doom 2 is just more Doom. It runs in the same engine, and the gameplay is generally the same. However, there were enough changes made to the formula to make it a bit different, and that made it, like I said before, the definition of Doom. Unlike the first game, Doom 2 is made up of 32 levels that are not divided into episodes. Therefore, you don't have to rebuild your arsenal every 8 levels or so, like in the first game. The progression of weapons is continuous throughout the game. Speaking of weapons, there was only one addition, but it's a big one. The Super Shotgun. An absolute unit of a double-barreled shotgun that can fire both barrels at once, and it is capable of clearing entire groups of weaker enemies with just one blast. This thing fucks hard, and it is arguably just as iconic or even more iconic than the BFG. And while this is the only new weapon, there are plenty of new enemies that make the Super Shotgun a necessary tool in your arsenal. These would include the Chain Gunner, an absolute bastard who can melt your health from across the map with his rapid-firing hit-scan chain gun that only you and the Spider Mastermind once possessed in the first game. Fortunately, he goes down with one of my favorite death animations from just one well-placed Super Shotgun blast. Then there is the Revenant, a blood-soaked skeleton with shoulder-mounted rocket launchers that send out heat-seeking missiles that often require constant movement and the utilization of corners to avoid. Moving on, there is also the morbidly obese Mancubus that launches extremely deadly fireballs from its arm cannons, and these might be some of the faster projectiles in the game. Then there's the Pain Elemental that shoots out lost souls, the Arachnotron, which is basically a smaller version of the Spider Mastermind that is equipped with a plasma rifle, the Hell Knight, which is just a weaker variant of the Baron of Hell, and the deadliest new enemy, the Archvile. This demon can not only resurrect his fallen demon buddies, but he can also hit you with a pillar of flame just by having you in his line of sight. A pillar of flame that can often insta-kill Doom Guy. The threat level is certainly much higher in Doom 2, and this is further amplified by the implementation of way more arena fights that typically pit Doom Guy against even greater numbers of enemies than in the first game. And I didn't mention this when talking about the first game, but across both Doom and Doom 2, the sprite work on display here is awesome, both for weapons and demons, but this is especially true in the case of the demons. Their designs are just so unique. A disgusting demonic foe that has been equipped with cybernetic augmentations is just so Doom, and I love the aesthetic of these monsters. It's also worth mentioning that the death animations are super cool and very gory, which adds a great deal to the aggressive and violent tone that is so synonymous with the series. Another great detail is actually in the audio design, as each enemy type has a unique audio cue that can often prepare the player for their next combat encounter, even when they haven't entered the area where said encounter is about to occur yet. And the level of enemy variety makes it the case that, especially in Doom 2, prioritization of the more deadly enemy types is always very important to your survival. In June of 1996, Final Doom was released. I won't talk much about it because it is really just an expansion to Doom 2 that doesn't offer much, except a rather mixed bag in terms of the level design and enemy placements, and way too many chain gunners in the Platonia experiment specifically. However, Doom 2's legacy is undeniable. Even today, so many mods are being created in the enhanced version of the Doom engine known as GZ Doom, and some new games in the indie scene, by the way, which are also amazing. And this is just another example of Doom being eternal. Not that long ago, and thanks to id Software and Night Dive Studios, we even saw a re-release of Doom and Doom 2 alongside the master levels for Doom 2, Final Doom, and some newer content like original Doom developer John Romero's new episode Sigil, and even more recently Sigil 2. On top of this, we also got 2 new episodes from Machine Games entitled Legacy of Rust. Legacy of Rust is a 2-episode map pack that was released as part of Doom plus Doom 2. It features new enemies, weapons, and textures mostly derived from unused and cut content. The level design is very unique and interesting for the most part, but there are a few levels that are not very well designed, and these levels in particular come with a lot of trial and error in their combat encounters. However, most of the combat encounters on offer here are very creative and challenging, definitely feeling like combat puzzles at times. In fact, many of the levels lean more into slaughter map territory with their extremely high enemy counts. first episode has the best overall level design in my opinion, and even the start to episode 2 is quite jarring, with its first level that feels like a massive difficulty spike due to its lack of ammo pickups and difficult and tedious navigation. New weapons include a flamethrower and a new version of the BFG that is powered by the very same fuel that supplies the flamethrower. New enemies include the Visago, a black-winged demon that throws fireballs that still continue to burn and do damage for some time wherever they land. The Shock Trooper, which is a new possessed marine that wields a plasma rifle. The Mind Weaver, which is a chain gun equipped variant of the Arachnotron, basically a mini spider mastermind. And the Tyrant, which is a lower tier variant of the Cyber Demon. Despite the issues with Legacy of Rust, it is generally a great Doom experience. As for me, I found a few levels to be frustrating, but overall I had a great time with it, and I was very impressed by the level of detail and aesthetics of the environments found in the WoD. Jumping back in time, at least in terms of release dates, the next canonical step in the story of Doom would be Doom 64. Originally developed and published by Midway Games, Doom 64 is a sequel to Doom 2. It came out on the N64 in 1997, but was eventually remastered by Night Dive Studios and released on all platforms in 2020. Doom 64, while running on a modified Doom engine, is certainly very different. There is much more of a focus on horror, as is evident in the lighting and audio design, especially with the creepy ambient soundtrack that was composed by Aubrey Hodges. Strange metallic grating, the sounds of babies crying, and some unearthly effects come together to create a soundscape that is truly eerie and unique. This game is very atmospheric, and it really helps it stand out from Doom and Doom 2. All of the previous weapons make a return, including the chainsaw, which is now double-bladed, and a new addition is the Unmaker, which is a new plasma-powered weapon at your disposal. Seemingly made of demonic skin and bone, the Unmaker sounds as though it is emitting the screams and moans of tortured souls whenever it is wielded. And it can actually be upgraded throughout the game by finding runes that up its damage, which utterly trivializes the final boss if you are willing to spend the time secret hunting for said runes. Apparently this was due to memory limitations, but some enemies are missing from the roster established by Doom 2, with the partially invisible Nightmare Imp being the only new enemy. These missing enemies include the Revenant, Chain Gunner, Archvile, and Spider Mastermind, but everything else is here, albeit with some changes made to their visual design. Some of the most striking changes are seen in the Mancubus and Cacodemon, which I see as a downgrade in my opinion, but that's not to say that the designs are bad. The most striking change to enemy visual design, however, is in the Pain Elemental, which looks like some Lovecraftian monstrosity with two gaping mouths filled with teeth the length of swords. probably my favorite enemy design in Doom 64. It is a look that is both weird and awesome. Unfortunately, they are also one of the most annoying enemies in the game, as they spawn the absolute most annoying enemy in the game, which is the Lost Soul. In the other Doom games, the Lost Souls don't bother me so much, but the speed at which the Pain Elemental spawns these things is ridiculous. And they also fly straight into your face in a split second. They are simply way too fast to be a fun enemy to deal with in this game. Other issues with Doom 64 include missing reload animations for the shotguns, and the game is also a bit too heavy on switch puzzles that make it feel like hexen at times. This meaning that you'll often hit a switch having no idea what it actually did. But most of what is on offer here is great. There are some fantastic combat encounters, like a boss fight with two cyber demons at the same time, and the aforementioned emphasis on a dark, moody, and unnerving atmosphere makes for an awesome experience when combined with classic Doom gameplay. It wasn't until 2004 that id Software finally released another Doom game, and this was the hard reboot that, for marketing reasons, was entitled Doom 3. Much like Doom 64, Doom 3 also leans into horror. This time, there is an even bigger emphasis on horror, though. Doom 3 is really trying to scare you. Gameplay is certainly slower, and there is weapon reloading, yuck, but the game is still very much action-packed. You don't move anywhere near as quickly, and there is a stamina meter for sprinting, annoyingly, but you still do a lot of demon killing. It always bothers me when I hear people refer to Doom 3 as a survival horror game, because let's be real here. What survival horror game would let you carry 250 shotgun shells and 96 rockets at any time? Speaking of the shotgun, this is also a point of controversy with this game. At a distance, this thing is not even close to the effectiveness of previous Doom shotguns, and the spread is completely random. However, if you get right up in a demon's face, this shotgun is incredible. One of the best melee weapons of all time. There were some cool changes made to the combat as well, like how the Revenant's rockets can be blown up in midair, which the plasma rifle is exceptionally good at. And there is a new possessed soldier called the Commando that launches its whip-like tentacle arm at the Doom Marine. But this attack can be dodged by simply staying in a crouched position. Speaking of new enemies, Doom 3 has several. Most of these new enemies merely run at the player to deal melee damage, but their creepy and gross designs gel well with the horror focus that the game has going for it. Plus, the designs are very Doom. There are enemies like the two-headed maggot, zombies that wield chainsaws, the black-winged cherubs, and the teleporting wraith. A monster that really stands out to me is the Trite, a spider-like creature with an upside-down human face for a head. And while it appears spider-like, it doesn't appear to have an exoskeleton, but rather it has pale, fleshy skin. There is also a smaller variant of the Trite, known as the Tick. Aside from these new enemies, there are new bosses in the Vagary, Sabbath, and Guardian of Hell, and most of the classic monsters make a return, aside from the Baron of Hell, Arachnotron, and Pain Elemental. Also, much like in Doom 64, several of these have seen changes to their visual appearance. The Revenant, for instance, has a strange translucent skin over its skeletal structure, and the Imp is now sporting multiple eyeballs on its head. The biggest changes, however, are seen in the Pinky Demon and Hell Knight, with the Pinky Demon now moving around on 4 legs, 2 of which are mechanical, and the Hell Knight having a completely different appearance that is extremely unique. The Doom 3 Hell Knight lacks the horns and goat-like legs of the previous Hell Knight design that was derived from the Baron of Hell. In fact, this new design has been carried over with a few alterations into the modern Doom trilogy. Also, I'm pretty sure that this Hell Knight doesn't even have eyes. He also moves around slowly, but hits like a truck. Weirdly, the super shotgun is missing from the base campaign of Doom 3, but it makes a glorious return in the expansion Resurrection of Evil, which adds a few new enemies of its own to the mix, as well as a new gun called the Grabber that can grab enemy projectiles in midair and shoot them right back in their faces. Definitely a response to Half-Life 2's gravity gun. It's also worth noting that in the base game, the new most powerful weapon is the Soul Cube. This ancient and mystical device is acquired after defeating the Guardian of Hell, and it can be used after a certain number of demons have been killed, 3 to be exact. Each use insta-kills an enemy and gives you health, as it zips around with its spinning blades. And it is the only way to kill the Cyber Demon at the end of the game. In Resurrection of Evil, the new magical item is simply called the Artifact, and what it does is slow down time, essentially giving the player bullet time, great when used in combination with the devastating power of the Super Shotgun. Doom 3's greatest strengths are certainly found in its atmosphere. Incredible dynamic lighting comes together with UAC facilities that feel very lived in to create an atmosphere that is unlike any other game. Light sources swing around and flicker, casting dynamic shadows that dance across the rooms and corridors of the UAC. Even an Imp's fireball will cast light and shadow that move with it as it travels. There is also very creative environmental design in the Hell levels, with this shooter's take on Hell being probably the most unique of any Doom game. The game is also very dark at times, in a literal sense, and relying on your flashlight to see just adds so much to the immersive atmosphere. And sure, it doesn't make sense that you can't have the flashlight equipped at the same time that you're carrying a weapon, but having to switch from the flashlight to a gun in the heat of an ambush creates so much incredible tension, especially when muzzle flashes and the glow of plasma projectiles are your primary sources of light during a fight. Another detail that amps up the immersion is the fact that ammo counters are not a part of the HUD, but are actually shown on the weapons themselves, which is pretty cool. Taking place on Mars this time instead of Phobos, Doom 3 is much more like Half-Life and System Shock than the other Doom games. The Half-Life influence can easily be seen in the way that level progression is much more natural, as it feels like you are actually traveling through a tangible space. Then the System Shock influence is seen in the acquiring of access codes by reading through emails or listening to audio logs, of which there are several. Many feel that these audio logs accessed via your PDA, slow the game down, but to me, they add a lot to enhance immersion. While Doom 3 exists outside of the main Doom timeline as it is recognized today, and while it plays differently than any other Doom game, I believe that it is a truly great game that is still well worth experiencing.
Warning, coolant rod 2 offline. Service bridge now operational.
It took many years for another mainline Doom title to come out of id Software, following the release of Doom 3. In November of 2010, id released Rage, which had a somewhat lukewarm reception. However, development on what was then called Doom 4 began as far back as 2007. It came to be known as Call of Doom within the walls of id Software's offices, as story and gameplay seemed to be chasing trends set by Call of Duty instead of actually innovating. Fortunately, the decision was eventually made to turn Doom 4 into a soft reboot, simply called Doom. And the gameplay and story was altered drastically, basically restarting the project. What we ended up getting in 2016, after we awoke from that sarcophagus, was nothing short of a masterpiece. After the slower, less aggressive combat of Doom 3 and the years of, well, nothing, Doom 2016 brought back the ultra-violence, energy, and attitude of the classic Doom games, even taking it up several notches in many places. In fact, this soft reboot seems to give the middle finger to what had been long-running trends in first-person shooters at the time. Gameplay is fast and frantic. You have to always be moving. Much like in the classic games, there is no reloading, and you can carry the entire arsenal at once. Beyond that, there are no iron sights. There is no regenerating health. There is no sprint. There is no stamina meter. You can jump high. You can even double jump. Movement feels great. Level design is fantastic. There is very little going from point A to point B in a straight line, but rather, levels are often fairly open-ended with branching pathways. Hunting for secrets is incredibly fun in this game, and it harkens back to the secret hunting found in classic Doom and Doom 2. Building off of Doom 2, and frankly feeling a bit like Serious Sam, most of the combat takes place in arena fights, with enemies spawning in. And the arenas are very well designed. I also can't help but notice the influence of the Quake games on Doom 2016, given that many of these arenas are filled with jump pads, and that the new weapon, the Gauss Cannon, is basically a railgun. And on top of all of this, all of these mechanics that come straight out of the more old school first-person shooters, Doom was also innovating yet again. This innovation comes primarily in the form of a concept: push forward combat. The more you kill, and the more quickly you do so, the faster you get resources like health and ammo back. Demons, when enough damage has been dealt to them, now go into a staggered state when they are ready to be glory killed. Glory kills are brutal death animations that Doom Guy, now known as the Doom Slayer, perpetrates on the forces of hell with great ferocity. Whether it be ripping an imp's head in half, or making a mancubus swallow its own explosive heart, glory kills are suitably glorious, and they add to that good old-fashioned ultra-violence that Doom is known for. But aside from being incredibly entertaining and cathartic, glory kills give a bunch of health back. As for getting ammo back, the chainsaw has been given a new purpose. The chainsaw now needs fuel to operate, this fuel being found in canisters in the environment, and chainsaw kills now replenish your ammunition. Also, if your chainsaw has enough fuel, you can even use it as an insta-kill against some of the game's tankiest demons. Other additions to the formula include throwable grenades of 3 different varieties, as well as light RPG elements for your suit and weapons. Suit upgrades can be unlocked by taking Praetor chips off of fallen UAC soldiers, all part of the secret hunting, and these suit upgrades include things like resistance to explosive barrels, faster ledge grabbing when platforming, and faster weapon switching, just to name a few. As for the weapons, there are weapon mods that can be unlocked and upgraded, and these are alternate fire modes. Some of my favorites are the explosive shells for the combat shotgun, the micro missiles for the heavy assault rifle, the mobile turret for the chain gun that looks absolutely ridiculous in the best way possible, the uranium-coated projectiles from the super shotgun that pierce through multiple enemies at once, the heat blast for the plasma rifle, siege mode for the Gauss cannon, and lock-on burst for the rocket launcher. It should also be noted that all of these weapons feel great to fire, especially the super shotgun and Gauss cannon, which are excellent at turning enemies into an explosion of blood and guts. Of course, the weapon that is insanely good at creating these gory explosions is the BFG, which makes a return and can clear an entire arena of demons no problem, as it should. Maximum health, armor, and ammo can also be upgraded by locating Argent energy cells that can be crushed in order to absorb their power. Much like Doom 3, Doom 2016 takes place on Mars. In fact, the design of the UAC facilities was largely inspired by how the UAC appeared in Doom 3, just way less claustrophobic. And despite the fact that gameplay is much faster and much more frantic than in Doom 3, there was still a lot of attention paid to the lighting and shadows. This game is still quite the looker, even today. The texture work is fantastic, and I love how many of the surfaces in the research facilities have a very glossy look to them, while the more industrial areas have lots of heavy machinery and metal with more muted tones. It all makes for a great sci-fi setting. Mars and the UAC facilities have a very strong art style, as do the Hell levels, which really stand apart artistically from the rest of the environments. These levels have been described as looking like heavy metal album covers, which is something that I certainly agree with. Hell is full of ancient and medieval looking structures that stand in stark contrast to the metallic corridors, computer rooms, and laboratories of the UAC. What also helps and honestly defines the rip and tear attitude of Doom 2016 is the soundtrack. Composed by Mick Gordon, the music of Doom 2016 sounds like nothing else you have ever heard. Utilizing heavy metal guitars, synthesizers, and even a chainsaw, this is an auditory cacophony of rage. The music is inspired by the idea that you are not stuck in hell with the demons, but the demons are stuck in hell with you. It is often harsh and heavy, and it gels with the combat as if you were dancing to it. The Doom dance, if you will. I will even listen to the soundtrack by itself when I'm not even playing the game. That's how much I love it. So, with Doom 2016, we have additions like the incredible soundtrack, beautiful AAA graphics, weapon alt-fires, glory kills, double jumping, the chainsaw, and just the sheer speed of it all. But there are also some new enemies in the mix. Replacing the Archvile is the Summoner, which can summon fallen demons and launch a wall of highly damaging energy at the player. However, unlike the classic Archvile, the Summoner does not damage you just by line of sight, which is a great and much appreciated change. On top of this, there is the Hellraiser that shoots out a very powerful focused laser attack, and there is also a possessed soldier that wields an energy shield, and a new armored variant of the Mancubus, the Cyber Mancubus. The Hell Knight, this time around, while having a similar appearance to the Doom 3 Hell Knight, is much faster and is a big bruiser that leaps into the air to wind up big melee attacks. A new boss is seen in the Hell Guards, but both the Cyber Demon and the Spider Mastermind make a return as well. And much like all of the demon designs in this game, their designs are awesome. The combination of big, gross demons with cybernetic augmentations is on full display here. The visual design of these monsters is quintessential Doom. I especially love the angry and bloody looks and movements of the Revenant here. Easily my favorite Revenant design. I also cannot talk about Doom 2016 without mentioning how much I love the Doomslayer. He is such a simple character. A completely silent protagonist in this game, he still manages to say so much with his level of anger and aggression, both during combat and during cutscenes, which never leave the player's perspective. He doesn't care about what anyone has to say to him, and he doesn't care much for listening to orders. He is just a super pissed off dude who happens to have superhuman strength, and he is literally too angry to die. In March of 2020, we got the sequel to Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, which really just expands on the gameplay of the prior game. Getting health back from glory kills and getting ammo back from chainsaw kills are two mechanics that both make a return. This time, however, we also got the Flame Belch, a shoulder-mounted flamethrower that sets enemies ablaze and makes them drop armor shards, now giving us a way to be in control of our armor as well. Another noteworthy change is found in the chainsaw, which now automatically regenerates 1 pip of fuel over time, which has been balanced around lower ammo counts for every weapon. This means that resource management is even more at the forefront than it was in Doom 2016. I always find it funny whenever I hear people complain about always running out of ammo in Doom Eternal, because you basically have infinite ammo in the form of demons that are essentially walking ammo crates, just waiting to be harvested. As long as you interact with the game's systems, you get into a flow state, or the fun zone, as Doom director Hugo Martin calls it. Getting good at managing cooldowns and feeling completely in control of your resources makes for an extremely fun combat experience, especially when paired with really satisfying weaponry. As far as other additions are concerned, there are some annoying sections of this game, like trudging through purple goo that drastically slows down your movement, but most additions add a lot to the gameplay. These would include the addition of a double dash that can be done in the air or on the ground, climbable walls, monkey bars to swing from, extra lives that can be found through secret hunting and can be activated to keep you in the fight without reloading a checkpoint, a shoulder-mounted equipment launcher that shoots out frag grenades, as well as ice grenades that freeze demons, and the Crucible Sword, which is a melee weapon powered by Argent Energy that kills any demon in one hit. Movement is definitely more acrobatic in Doom Eternal, as is helped by the aforementioned dashing and monkey bars. But another major aspect of Doom Eternal's acrobatics is found in this game's take on the super shotgun. This is because this time around, the super shotgun has a grappling hook attached to it called the Meat Hook, which allows the player to grapple onto demons, either to pull themselves in close to shoot them right in the face, or to attach to a demon and hit the jump button at the right moment so that they can fling themselves high into the air and rain down death from above. And as a side note, the Meat Hook can be upgraded to set demons on fire, like the Flame Belch. Staying airborne as much as possible is key if you want to become a high-level Doom Eternal player, as is quick switching. Now, quick switching weapons was something that you could do to a certain extent in Doom 2016, but with the increased weapon switching speeds found in this game, animation canceling by switching weapons extremely quickly is something that you can do much more easily in Doom Eternal. In fact, this was the very first game that I have ever played where I decided to go in and change most of my key bindings for weapons and equipment items, utilizing the extra buttons on my gaming mouse for a handful of actions. In addition to this, there is the inclusion of the Fortress of Doom, which is a big hub area where currency for suit, weapon, and other player upgrades can be unlocked, and there is the return of the Unmaker from Doom 64, just with a different spelling, lore, and design. As for the enemies, most demons from Doom 2016 make a return, but there are some new ones as well, including some old enemies that show their faces again for the first time since Doom 2, like the Pain Elemental and Arachnotron. Also, the Archvile returns to this game instead of the Summoner. New enemies include the teleporting Prowler, similar to the Wraith from Doom 3, the Gargoyle, which is like an imp that can fly, the difficult to lock down Whiplash, the Tentacles, the cybernetic variant of the Hell Knight known as the Dread Knight, the Doom Hunter, which moves around with a hovercraft-like sled and is one of my favorite designs and one of my favorite enemies to fight.
I thought you would appreciate the sentry I chose. The great Agadon hunters from the Telos realm, though long thought to be extinct, created to hunt only the Slayer and his Night Sentinels during the Unholy Crusades. Some improvements on their design have been made. Enjoy what is undoubtedly my finest work.
Slayer identified.
The Carcass, which can put up energy shields that can block your rockets, sometimes making them explode right in your face. A very smart enemy AI, by the way. As well as the mecha zombies and maker drones. It's also really cool that returning enemies like the Mancubus and zombie soldiers have an appearance that is much closer to those visual designs seen in the classic games. These demons are all really fun to fight, and prioritizing the most dangerous ones is more important than ever, as is figuring out the best strategies for taking them down quickly. To give an example, you might think that taking down the Doom Hunter requires you to slowly destroy its energy shield with the plasma rifle. But if you quick swap between the precision bolt of the heavy assault rifle and the standard fire of the rocket launcher while exclusively attacking the Doom Hunter's sled, he goes down much faster. Once the sled has been destroyed, a single lock-on burst from the rocket launcher will put the Doom Hunter into a glory kill state. One enemy in particular that really gave a lot of players a hard time was the Marauder. With this guy, you have to wait for his eyes to flash green to deal damage, which you can bait him into doing by being around medium range from him. In order to maximize the damage you deal to him within these windows of time, quick swap weapon cycles are yet again key. For me, I really like to do a simple pattern, which is super shotgun, ballista, super shotgun. You do that a few times, and the Marauder is yours to put down. If you get too close to the Marauder, he shoots you with his shotgun, and if you shoot him before his eyes flash green, he will summon a wolf spirit to chase you down. Speaking of putting demons down, the animations for the glory kills in Doom Eternal are ridiculous, which is certainly helped by the inclusion of the wrist-mounted Doomblade, which the Doomslayer likes to shove through demons' skulls. They are more creative and brutal here than anything that was seen in Doom 2016. I especially have a soft spot for the glory kill that you do on the Prowler when you break its arm and shove its arm bone through its mouth out the back of its head. It's just amazing. And this glory kill is awesome on the Whiplash as well. Many demons also have weak points that can be destroyed. Is that Arachnotron's turret bothering you? Just use a sticky bomb for the combat shotgun, the plasma rifle heat blast, or the precision bolt to take it out. Now, that demon's turret has been disabled. Same thing goes for the arm cannons on the Mancubus. You also have a new melee attack in the form of the Blood Punch, which is a highly damaging melee strike that you can also destroy enemy weak points with. On top of this, the damage you deal to demons is now visually represented by chunks of flesh being blown off and bone being exposed, meaning that enemy models are now basically dynamic. To make things very clear, everything in this game is visually striking. The environments, for instance, are all incredibly varied and gorgeous, even if it's in a dark, hellish, or apocalyptic kind of way. No two levels look the same, and I'd be very surprised if anyone wasn't blown away by the environmental designs of levels like Super Gornest or Urdak, especially Urdak. Seriously, I cannot stress enough how insane the level of environmental variety is here. Much like Doom 2016, this is a visual stunner, but even better. The Hell invasion of Earth is represented in the best way that I could possibly imagine, as are the other levels that take place in Hell or on other worlds entirely. While I have talked about the weapons a little bit, I do want to go into a little more detail. The weapons of Doom 2016 all make a return, just with the Gauss cannon now being the ballista, and of course with all of the weapons having visual redesigns. The combat shotgun now has a full auto mod alongside sticky bombs, which can be shot into the mouths of cacodemons to instantly put them into a glory kill state. It's actually really funny because when you do that, you watch the cacodemon close its mouth and make a gulping sound. It's great. It's hilarious. Micro missiles return to the heavy assault rifle, but I find a lot of use in the highly damaging precision bolt, especially when you get good at quick scoping. With regard to the plasma rifle, the heat blast makes a return, and the new weapon mod is the microwave beam, which is great at locking enemies down, even if for a short falter. The mobile turret is yet again an option with the chain gun, but I found the energy shield to be extremely useful as it absorbs damage, basically giving the player invulnerability until it breaks. Mods for the rocket launcher remain the same, with lock-on burst and remote detonation being the options. Then the ballista has the destroyer blade that can slice through multiple enemies at once, making it like a mini BFG, and the arbalist, which can be useful against flying enemies. Speaking of the BFG, it wouldn't be a Doom game without it, so this iconic weapon returns yet again. Just having to sit down and write the script for this video is insane, because there are so many things to talk about with Doom Eternal, whether it be the crazy amount of game mechanics, weapons, enemies, or visuals. And yet, somehow, all of this comes together so naturally and smoothly while playing the game. It's honestly astonishing how playing such a deep game can feel like second nature once you get into the fun zone. On a personal level, Doom Eternal is such an important part of my life, seriously. Right before this game was released, my wife and I had to postpone our wedding for a full year due to COVID restrictions on events and gatherings. This put me into a deep sense of depression and anger, and Doom Eternal was instrumental at helping me get through this time in my life. But that wasn't even the only moment when it helped me get through a difficult time, as just a couple years later, I was denied a promotion at my job that I frankly genuinely deserved. So I was extremely angry, and I decided to take the next day off. On that very day, after several months of trying, I was so angry that I finally beat Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare in one sitting. It was like I was the Doom Slayer in that moment, which might sound stupid, but that's how it felt.
transmitter tower. If you can destroy it, the unrefined energy should be able to propel you into their world. The tower is held aloft by 2 enslaved titans. Break the chains. Drop it into the well below.
Doom Eternal is my favorite video game of all time, and it was fortunately followed up with 2 DLC expansions entitled The Ancient Gods Part 1 and 2. In The Ancient Gods, there are 3 new levels per DLC, all of which following that Doom Eternal trend of being visually unique and striking. The first level of Part 1 takes place on some kind of UAC oil rig, and it introduces a stationary enemy that is the turret, which is an eyeball turret. This level even concludes with a big fight in an underwater section of the facility that starts with an encounter against 2 marauders at the same time. The next 2 levels take us back to Hell and Urdak, and introduce us to the Spirit, Whiplash Spectre, Giant Tentacle, and Bloodmaker. The Spirit is the most interesting new enemy, as it possesses and buffs the speed of demons, and can only be destroyed with the plasma rifle's microwave beam once it has been separated from its host. The Bloodmaker has a very cool design, and is quite dangerous when not taken care of quickly. But once it launches itself into the air and opens up its head, a single headshot from the precision bolt or ballista can take it out. There are some very creative and challenging combat encounters in this DLC, and they do verge on being a bit bullshit at times, but overall this is a great DLC that is a true test for Doom Eternal players. Personally, I find the final boss to be quite tough during the 2 final phases of the fight. Part 2 is certainly the easier of the 2 DLCs, and it adds enemies like the Stone Imp, which are weak to the full auto mod for the combat shotgun, and also go down by dashing into them while the chain gun's energy shield is activated. Other new demons include the Riot Soldier, which is a chain gunner with a shield that cannot be overheated by the plasma rifle. Instead, remote detonation rockets over their heads or behind them are the best option. Then there is the Armored Baron, which launches a chain ball at the player, but this chain ball can be shot when it flashes green, which opens the Armored Baron up to be attacked, as he is otherwise invulnerable. For me, I always like to throw an ice bomb his way at this moment, which allows me to dump as much damage into him as possible. Lastly, there is the Cursed Prowler, with its poison claws that cause the player to lose their ability to jump or dash while their health slowly drains, and the Screecher Zombie, which is unique in that it's an enemy that you don't want to shoot. Otherwise, shooting it causes it to screech, which buffs nearby demons. Especially bad if those nearby demons are marauders. Part 2 of the Ancient Gods also adds the Sentinel Hammer, which is charged up with glory kills. It also allows the player to jump up into the air and smash the hammer down on the ground, stunning demons and making them drop a bunch of resources. Definitely a very powerful weapon that makes this DLC much easier than the first one. The final boss of the Ancient Gods is unfortunately not that great, as it is basically a glorified Marauder fight, but all in all, I think both of these DLCs are well worth your time if you're a Doom fan. The newest game in the Doom series is actually a prequel to Doom 2016, and that is Doom: The Dark Ages. It takes place during the Doomslayer's time with the Night Sentinels while their world is being invaded by the forces of Hell. While he is initially under Maker control, he eventually breaks free from this and chooses on his own to aid the Night Sentinels in their fight. In this game, the Doomslayer feels much heavier than he did in Doom 2016, and especially Doom Eternal. As director Hugo Martin put it, in Doom Eternal, you feel like a race car, and in Doom: The Dark Ages, you feel like an iron tank. Your steps sound heavy, and you do a ground-pound shockwave that kills multiple enemies at once whenever you drop from a high elevation. But you are still very fast in different ways. What helps to maintain the sense of speed that Doom players are used to is the addition of the Shield Saw, the tool that the entire game is based around. With its shield bash ability, the Shield Saw allows the player to zip into demons at the speed of light and bash them into a pulp with explosive impact. It's like a combination of the meat hook and dash from Doom Eternal, but even faster. Fodder demons explode into blood and gore upon impact, and heavy demons are faltered. In addition to this, throwing the Shield Saw into groups of fodder enemies can cut all of them down at once, which is especially true when used against enemies with overheated shields. When heavy demons are armored, the shield can be tossed at their armor to break it if it has been overheated with a gun. This creates a really cool synergy between the Shield Saw and your guns. The shield is also central to the parrying mechanics in Doom: The Dark Ages, as the shield can deflect projectiles of all kinds. Green projectiles can be deflected back at demons, damaging them, but other projectiles can destroy the shield if it takes too many hits. Fortunately, the shield does regenerate with time. When fighting super heavy demons, like the Cyber Demon, who now sports a pair of wings, or the Agadon Hunter, whose corpses were harvested for the creation of the Doom Hunters in Doom Eternal, parrying multiple melee attacks will falter these demons and open them up to taking way more damage, especially from your melee weapons. Those melee weapons include an electrified gauntlet, a flail, and the Dread Mace, which might as well be the melee equivalent to the BFG. These melee weapons also act as your means of getting ammo back. The flail can also be upgraded to set enemies on fire so that they drop armor, but the combat shotgun can also be upgraded to do the same. So, the resource management from Doom Eternal is still here. It's just done a bit differently. Melee weapons, with the exception of the Dread Mace, can also store up to 3 charges that can either be used one at a time or all at once as a 3-hit combo. It takes some getting used to, but once you get the flow of parrying and melee attacks down, it is a very satisfying gameplay loop. The Shield Saw can also be modified with runes that give it upgradable abilities that activate whenever it is used to parry. Like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, the game feel is on point here, and it is very obvious that the developers wanted players to get right up in demons' faces. Stand and fight is the tagline for Doom: The Dark Ages, and this phrase holds very true. Combat often takes place at close to medium range, and it's a unique spin on the Doom formula. And while it's a bit of a shame that glory kills are much less prevalent in the Dark Ages, the glory kills that are here are done with the Shield Saw, and they are awesome. Like slicing a mancubus in half from top to bottom. Also, I'm not really all that bothered by the lack of glory kills because this game in particular flows so well without them, but I can also understand why some players would be upset that they are predominantly missing. What really holds up the level of brutality, however, are the guns, as these are probably the best that the guns have ever felt in a Doom game. They are loud, heavy, and visceral. The Dark Ages handles its guns a bit differently, as they are now sorted into classes. Therefore, you have your shotgun class with the combat shotgun and super shotgun, which is insanely beefy in this game, while there is also the Shredder, which is basically a rapid-fire nail gun that shares a weapon class with the Impaler, a super powerful rail spike launcher that is especially powerful when getting headshots with it. Electrified plasma guns include the Accelerator and the Cycler, which looks a lot like the Quake nail gun, and these guns are great in that they can be upgraded so that the more a demon is loaded up with electricity, the more damaging additional projectiles become. There is also a grenade launcher this time around, and it shares a weapon class with the rocket launcher, which might just be the greatest rocket launcher of all time. This is because just on a base level it does crazy high damage, but it can be upgraded so that if the rocket launcher is equipped while a green Hellwave attack is perfectly parried, the next rocket is supercharged, which puts the very powerful Cacodemons in this game immediately into a glory kill state. On top of this, there are also the Skull Crusher weapons, like the Ravager and Pulverizer, which are some other rapid-fire options that function just how you would expect them to, but with some unique benefits of their own. And the Reaver Chain Shot, which shoots out an incredibly powerful cannonball on a chain that breaks armor in just one hit. And of course, there is a variant of the BFG, which is a crossbow in this game. The Ballistic Force Crossbow, to be exact. I found the Impaler to be a ridiculously good weapon, as it can be upgraded to regain a piece of ammunition per every headshot. So if you're constantly getting headshots with this thing, you basically have unlimited ammunition for one of the most powerful weapons in the game. Yeah, the power fantasy here is off the charts. And also, I do want to talk about upgrading in this game for a little bit. And to get upgrades, you have to find gold. You spend that gold on upgrades. And like I said, your shield, your melee weapons, and your guns can all be upgraded. So that's how all of that works in this game. You can also upgrade your health and armor and maximum ammo counts by defeating certain mini-boss demons called leaders, and those fights are very fun. Other additions to the gameplay include vehicle sections, like sections where you get to pilot a giant mech as you punch titans to death, and the level and scale of the destruction here is wild. Then there are times when you get to pilot a cybernetic dragon. Combat for both types of vehicle sections primarily boils down to attacking and dodging, so the gameplay here isn't very deep, but I found it to be enjoyable enough and a nice pace breaker. It's also worth mentioning that there are two very short turret sections in this game, which sounds wild to say that there are turret sections in a Doom game, but they're just fine. They don't really add much or take away from the experience, and like I said, they're both very brief. I also love how the Dark Ages harkens back to the classic games in that projectiles move slowly and can be easily dodged, which makes it feel so different when compared to the other two modern Doom games. Most of the demons in this game also feel much easier to kill, but they come at you in much larger numbers as well. It's certainly a different kind of Doom that feels both classic and very fresh at the same time. And of course, like with every modern Doom game, the visuals are amazing. The techno-medieval setting is very cool and very atmospheric, and this might be the strongest art direction of any Doom game. The levels on Argent D'Nur look awesome, as do the Hell levels, but the real peak of this game's art direction is seen in the Cosmic Realm, which is a strange Lovecraftian world where new enemies like the unearthly dual-bladed Cosmic Baron, the hybrid tentacled Cacodemon that looks an awful lot like the Octobrain from Duke Nukem, and the human squid hybrid, the Acolyte, are introduced. Even good old Cthulhu makes an appearance. There were several moments while running around the Cosmic Realm levels that I just had to stop and look around at the incredible surroundings. It's definitely one of those games. And I can't help but wonder if this all but confirms a connection between Doom and Quake. Going back to the topic of enemies, chain gunners make a return, and while they are used sparingly, they can be a massive pain in the ass. Just take my advice and hit them with the impaler before finishing them off with a shield toss, as do the stone imps, which make a return from the Ancient Gods Part 2, and they can be easily destroyed with a good shield bash. They're small, but they can catch you off guard pretty easily. Then several classic enemies make a return, some of them having armored variants. And the classic imp design was brought back for a new enemy, which is called the Imp Stalker. Basically, a heavier hitting imp that moves slower. Well, slower except when it dashes into you. As well as the Nightmare Imp Stalker, which is a reference to the Nightmare Imp from Doom 64, and it cannot be shield bashed while partially invisible. In fact, to make it fully visible, you have to deal damage to it. I found throwing the shield saw to be a good way to do this, while stunning it at the same time. Pinky demons in this game run around on 4 legs like in Doom 3, and have a pinky rider sitting on top of them, and these two come in armored and unarmored variants. In addition to this, the Whiplash returns from Doom Eternal and is once again difficult to lock down, unless you shield bash it and then follow this up by throwing the shield saw into it. The Revenant is here as well, and this time has the appearance of a robed skeletal wizard that shoots magical skull projectiles at the player, a cool design and a really fun demon to fight. There are also some new super heavy demons, and these include the giant spider-like Vagary, which is loosely based on the enemy of the same name from Doom 3, another favorite demon design of mine from the Dark Ages, and the Komodo, which is a big lizard demon that runs all over the place and spews out a bunch of fireballs. Plus, it also wields a big spear. The roster of enemy types is massive in the Dark Ages, but as long as you know how to best use your tools of destruction, they won't be much of a problem, as I think this is the easiest of the modern Doom games. All in all, I love Doom the Dark Ages, and I find it to be a more than worthy entry into the series. The Doom series is one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, and I don't think the series has ever seen a bad game. The modern Doom games in particular are power fantasies that you have to earn by getting good and getting into a flow state, or the fun zone, if you will. All Doom games, though, both old and new, have so much to offer. And this is a video that I have wanted to make for a very long time, as I have so much love for all of these titles. So, I hope that you enjoyed it. And with that, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe, and dislike it if you absolutely hated it. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, and go play some Doom.
Azaric is keeping her alive on his ship. If she dies, his power would die with her.